The Archer is notorious for being the most versatile unit in the game. A combination of high damage output and range, along with workable mobility, leads to a unit that can pick off villagers and military before the opponent can react. Throughout most of the game, archers are very timing dependent, meaning that they are best used as soon as possible once upgrades are in and your mass is sufficient. In Feudal Age, archers often follow up men-at-arms as the earlier infantry keep the opponent from walling, and then the archers can roam freely, picking off exposed villagers as they please. On Castle Age, you can have a good mass of archers from Feudal Age that you can quickly upgrade to crossbowmen, get bodkin arrow, and even quick ballistics. Against an opponent who's up to Castle Age even just a minute slower, you'll have a pretty good timing window to do damage, as it's almost impossible to fight crossbowmen with feudal units. On Imperial Age, the same kind of timing can occur. You can get Bracer, Chemistry, and Arbalister for an additional 3 attack and 1 range. Again, just like with crossbowmen, it can be very difficult to stop these Arbalisters if the opponent only has Castle Age units. In Feudal Age, there are only 2 units that can be trained that cost gold, the Men-at-Arms and the Archer. Since Men-at-Arms generally aren't massed, if you see your opponent on gold while going to Feudal Age, they will likely be going for archers. The fact that it's easy to scout means that even though getting caught off guard by archers can be deadly, you probably shouldn't be getting caught off guard too often. Checking your opponent's gold sometime after clicking Feudal Age will give you a good idea if you should expect archers. Checking gold is not the only way to scout an archer opening though. First, we have to look at the various openings that include archers. There's Drush into archers, Men-at-Arms into archers, Tower Rush with archers, 1 range archers, 2 range archers, and even the all-in 3 range archers. Let's take a quick look at how each of these play out. For Drush into archers, it starts out with Militia and Dark Age to force resource walls and keep the opponent open, and then follows up with a relatively fast Feudal Age to make archers. Something like 22 to 24 villagers up to Feudal is about right. Since the opponent is open and has been distracted by Militia, archers can run directly in and finish the job. For Men-at-Arms archers, 3 to 4 Militia are produced on the way to Feudal Age and strike as soon as Men-at-Arms upgrade finishes producing. On Feudal Age, an archery range is made as the follow-up to shoot repair villagers to help break in. Men-at-Arms archers is similar to Drush archers, it's just that the Men-at-Arms hit a bit later than the Militia, but the archers hit a bit earlier. Tower Rush with archers can be situationally strong, as archers can garrison inside towers to shoot arrows, just like villagers, but can also ungarrison to kill villagers attacking the tower's base. In a prolonged tower war, if you keep 4 archers and 1 villager inside to repair, you will have much less villager idle time than the opponent who has 4 or 5 villagers sitting inside. If you don't think you can get into your opponent's base to do much damage, but can force a prolonged tower war on forward berries or gold, adding archers with your tower rush can be strong. Going straight 1 range archers with no infantry to open is a more defensive play. The early archers that you get are great for dealing with enemy militia and men-at-arms, and if your opponent is also doing 1 range follow-up to their infantry, you should have at least as many archers as them. Against 2 ranges, you also have the option to switch to full skirmisher production, which can shut down 2 range archers, even with just the 1 range. If you play 1 range defensive archers, you can try to get walls up and get Horsecaller, as you're saving resources by not making any infantry. You can also try to get to Castle Age fast and hit an early timing with the archers you've been massing from your 1 range. If you open with 2 range archers, you must do damage to your opponent, as you're making a large early investment into military. To increase your chances of doing damage, it's still common to open with a Drush or Men-at-Arms to keep your opponent open before adding in the 2 ranges for archers. Really, the only units that can fight massed archers in Feudal Age are skirmishers, and forcing your opponent to make a bunch of skirmishers can hurt his uptime to Castle Age, leave him vulnerable to cavalry and mangonels, and prevent him from pressuring effectively, as skirmishers don't kill villagers very fast. Against 2 range archers, if you don't want to go skirmishers, thick walls and a tower or 2 are your best friends. The last archer opening on the list is 3 range archers. 3-range archers throws conventionality out the window and just makes units. It's mainly done with Saracens due to their bonus damage against buildings, cheap market, and better prices at the market. With this opening, you get to the point where skirmishers and watchtowers just melt to your archer mass. You can even add your own skirmishers since they will help to kill enemy skirmishers, and the bonus against buildings does apply to them as well. If you're up against Saracens, you'll definitely want to keep an eye on what they're doing, as the market gives them a lot of flexibility. As we just went over, there are many ways you can use archers as part of your opening. It's not just by chance that they're so versatile though. Looking at their stats, we can see that they're the epitome of a glass cannon. With only 35 HP and no armor, they die pretty fast to any units that can actually hit them. The thing is that they have a reasonably high attack value of 4 or 5 with fletching, and can hit any unit that can hit them with their 4 or 5 range as well. They move faster than men-at-arms, and a spearman or two can be added to shut down scouts' play against them. This leaves skirmishers as their most effective counter, but even then, since archers do 2 damage per hit with fletching before the skirms have padded archer armor, a decent mass of archers can deal with a few skirmishers no problem. As with any ranged unit, more numbers is better, as you will kill more enemies faster before they can reach you, leading to a bigger snowball. 4 scouts versus 5 archers means that the scouts win, but 16 scouts versus 20 archers means that the archers win. This is why when your mass is low, and you therefore have significantly less damage output, adding a spearman to supplement your archers is important. Archers are balanced by the fact that they train slowly compared to most other units in Feudal Age, so multiple production facilities are required to offset this. Their upgraded form, the Crossbowman, doesn't have the same issue, however. The Crossbowman upgrade may be the most cost-effective upgrade in the game, at least until it got recently nerfed. It reduces creation time by 8 seconds down to 27, and increases attack and range by 1, and HP by 5. The cost of this upgrade is 175 food and 125 gold. It used to be 50 food and 50 gold cheaper, but it recently got changed. Compared to the Elite Skirmisher upgrade, which costs 230 wood and 130 gold, this is a pretty good bargain. The Crossbowman really dominates in early Castle Age due to the mass that was built up during Feudal Age. Hitting the opponent as soon as Crossbowman and Bodkin Arrow are in will almost always do damage to an opponent who's stuck in Feudal Age. If you see an opportunity to attack villagers with your Crossbowman, constructing a university and getting ballistics as soon as possible can allow you to kill enemy villagers instead of just pushing them away. Ballistics is also very useful when fighting the opponent's army, especially when they're making their own Crossbowmen or cavalry archers. With ballistics, it's just much easier to hit targets that are further away. Against knights, light cavalry, or ego warriors, prioritizing Thumb Ring will increase your damage output when they get close, which they have to do to attack you. If you're going to be taking a big fight against melee units, Thumb Ring might be just what you need to win the fight. Against these same melee units, ballistics can still be useful if your opponent doesn't have enough to really engage your army yet, in the case that you're ahead with your uptime to Castle Age. In this situation, ballistics will help you pick off newly created units and villagers, which increases your lead further. If your opponent doesn't have enough units to win a fight, then the utility that ballistics provides can be much more useful to you than the damage increase from Thumb Ring. In other words, if you're in a position where you'll win a fight against an opponent who is making melee units, regardless of if you have Thumb Ring or not, getting ballistics can help you maintain that position while your opponent struggles to mass a big enough army to fight with. If you have map control when you're playing Crossbowmen, splitting them into smaller groups and camping behind woodlines can be a real nuisance for your opponent to deal with. This tactic works especially well when your opponent is making units with the same or less mobility than you. Against faster units, splitting up your Crossbowman might just lead them to getting picked off as they can't retreat. So, if your opponent has mobile units, keep your Crossbowman together. If he has equal or slower units, splitting is fine if you have map control. Map control in this context being the ability to win against or run from your opponent's army if necessary. There are so many ways to use Crossbowmen in this game, so without going into too much detail, here are some examples. Early Castle Age Crossbowmen, Bodkin Arrow timing attack with or without ballistics, Siege push with Crossbowmen to snipe knights, villagers, and other units, defense against enemy melee units behind walls, against camels or pikemen if you're also making knights or light cav, the list goes on. If there's one unit that defines the meta right now, it's the Crossbowman. Maybe in a few years' time after some balance changes, it won't be the case anymore, but for now, you can't go wrong learning how to use this unit. Another great thing about the crossbowmen is that they can be upgraded to Arbalisters. The Arb upgrade only gives +1 attack and +5 HP, but since it's an Imperial Age unit, you'll be picking up Bracer and Chemistry as well, so those should also be considered. With fully upgraded Arbalisters, you have 3 attack over the crossbowmen, which is a huge increase. For comparison, a fully upgraded Arbalister does the same damage at 8 range as an unupgraded Knight does. Of course, being pierce damage, most units will have more armor against Arbs compared to Knights, but still, Arbs kill almost everything that can be produced in Castle Age, even skirmishers to some extent. Arbs can eventually be whittled down by skirmishers though, so don't think they're invincible. We can't talk about Imperial Age without talking about the importance of retaining your gold units. Ranged units are much easier to keep alive compared to melee units. One of the major advantages of Arbalisters is that they can deal a ton of damage, and then when the meat shield dies, they can retreat back to the safety of a castle until more frontline units arrive. Since gold can become quite limited in the late game, anytime you trade trash units for gold units, you'll be gaining the advantage. All that gold you save by not having to replace your Arbs can be used for more siege units. Of course, even if Arbs can deal with most frontline units, it's enemy backline units such as Onagers and Bombard Cannons that you really have to worry about. Staying out of these units' range or picking them off when they're isolated is what you might be best to focus on in big late game battles. Using your meat shield effectively and not taking any big Onager shots is your key to winning these fights. You can use either Halberdiers or Hussar as your meat shield depending on the situation. Halbs are better at dealing with cavalry, and Hussar are better against enemy ranged units such as skirmishers and enemy Arbs. If your map is super open and you can't secure your base, chasing down enemy raiding Hussar with your own Hussar instead of Halbs can sometimes be better. As with most strategic considerations, the solution is not absolute. There may be many ways to deal with the same problem, but the more information you take into account when making decisions, the more effective your decisions may be. The important part here is to have some kind of buffer between your Arbs and the enemy units, be it Hussar, Halbs, Champions, Rams, or something else. Since the goal is to conserve gold units, if you have a gold unit frontline in addition to your Arbs, then you must have a good reason for it. Rams are great for tanking enemy arrow fire and can push buildings, and Champions are great against enemy trash units and can also take down buildings. Taking into account all of your available units' attributes to make the best decisions for what to go for is the main purpose of this series in the first place. Some units in this game are more generalist and some are more specialist. For example, Rams are specialists designed with the sole purpose to take down buildings. They do have some other properties such as being able to garrison units, being able to soak a lot of arrow fire, and the ability to take down enemy siege units fast, but their main purpose is to take out buildings. Compare that with the archer line units. They are much more generalist. You can't really concisely describe what archers are good at, because they can do almost anything decently. They can raid villagers, shoot over walls, break palisade walls, kill most infantry units, kill most cavalry units, kill most archery range units, kill monks, kill mangonels if microed correctly, defend against units behind walls, add arrows to town centers, towers, and castles, and much, much more. Since the archer line is so versatile, it's no wonder that they are the most popular unit line in the game. Even if you don't know what your opponent is doing, making archers is probably going to be a decent choice. And that's it for this one. See you next time.